Guðmundsson. Albert skorar! Albert Guðmundsson hefur skorað. Ragnar Bergjesson og skoðaðar. Glæsilega. Óskar Rafn á móti Bjarna. Og Bjarni með góða sendingu fyrir og Haraldur Ingvarsson.
Welcome back to Besta Dilden Towers. I am Joe, one of your hosts, and I'm joined as ever by Tryggvi. Unfortunately, Ragnar is not able to join us today. We miss him, but he will be back on another episode. Tryggvi, how's Copenhagen doing?
Copenhagen's good. It's a little chilly, but it's sunny and spring has sprung. But I like living in a tower. That's Besta Dilden Towers. There's a nice ring to it.
Yes. Newly leased. Yes. Well, Ohio is hot and there's lots of pollen. My allergies are going absolutely haywire. My eyes are going nutso, but that's a different story. You don't care about that. You care about the Besta Dilden. That's why we're here. So we're going to break down match week 2 for you. I'm going to start by reading through the results, and then we'll talk about games kind of in chunks, actually, this time. We're not going to necessarily go game by game, but we will touch on all the games. All right, so to start, Stjarnan hosted Kaur on Friday night, and Kaur coming away with a 3-1 win. That's a good result for them. We'll break that down here in a second. But goals from Eger Jarl, Axel Oskar, and Benoni Brecki. Benoni Brecki's back. He's back. We're excited. Mm-hmm. And then Orvar Egertsen, who moved to Stjarnan this season from Haukau, got his first goal for Stjarnan in the league. So Breidablik hosted Vestri. Breidablik rolled out 4-0 winners. Pretty dominating performance, if we're being honest. Goals in the 51st minute from Victor Karl, no surprise there. In the 63rd minute from Hoskilder, or Hogi, that's what I like to call him. That was a penalty that he converted, so he did a good job there. In the 85th minute, Dager scored, young player, he's only 18. Was this his first goal for Breidablik?
Yeah, it's his first. I think it's his first league goal overall. So yeah, it's a promising young talent. And
then there was an own goal in the 94th minute, so 4 minutes into extra time, that just kind of put the nail in the coffin from Batamosi, who is a Vestry player, obviously. So yeah, that's how that one would end. Kawa hosted FAO, and FAO goes away to Akureyri and secures a 3-2 win. That's a big win. I'm going to break that one down for you guys here in a little bit. FAO started the scoring in the 19th minute. There was a penalty, and Vuk converted to make it 1-0. Shortly after that, Sigurdur Bjartur scored I think this was his first goal for FAO as well, to make it 2-0. And then Kawa would pull one back in the 35th minute. Asgir Sigurd Geirsson scored, and then they would tie it up shortly after halftime. Oh, I can't wait to talk about this goal. Bjarni scored in the 51st minute to make it 2-2. But 6 minutes later, my boy Captain Kari, he pops up good with a really nice, well-placed goal right in the corner, and they would see that result out. So FAO 3-2 winners over Kawa away from home. Haukau hosted IA. Haukau. Whew, it's not looking good. They lost 4-0 to IA. First hat trick of the season. We'll talk about that in a second, from Victor Jansson in 10 minutes, no less. Hat trick in 10 minutes, which is very impressive. But he was not actually the one that got the scoring going for IA. It was Arnar Smáradona who got the scoring going in the 52nd minute.
I'm probably gonna forget about this later, so I have to say it now. Like I was watching when I was watching that game when Arnar Smáradona scored, the commentator is great, and you all need to find this video of the highlights of this game. Just if for nothing else, just for the way the commentator does this. Arnar Smáradona. Smáradona.
Smáradona.
It's great.
I watched the highlights earlier. I watched the highlights earlier today, and I don't remember catching that. But you probably caught it because you're familiar with the accent. Maybe for me it was tougher, but that's hilarious. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. Smáradona. I think we have a new nickname for him.
For sure.
That should be our episode title too. Smáradona. That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so yeah, Victor Jansson, 60th minute, 66th minute, and 70th minute. Fylkir hosted Valor. That ended 0-0, but don't let the scoreline fool you. That was a very entertaining game. Fram hosted Víkingur yesterday, and also a very entertaining game. It only ended 1-0 to Víkingur, and I'll be honest with you, I'm impressed with the way that Fram are playing at the moment. I think we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about these games kind of in chunks, and the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk about, so in this match week, it was kind of big versus small, so to speak, with quotes. Imagine me doing quotes, big versus small. So obviously you had Breidablik hosting Vestri, you had Fram hosting Víkingur, and you had Fylkir hosting Valor. So Tryggvi, I've talked for a while now. I'm handing it over to you. What did you think about these three games?
It was very interesting, I think, because we saw this a few times last season. The teams struggled a little bit against these smaller teams. Like we saw Keflavik had a terrible season, but they somehow managed to get draws against the big boys. We saw the same thing with maybe a bit less so with IPVAF as far as I remember, but we did see this like once in a while. We saw like Valur really struggling to put these games to bed. Same with Breidablik at times. Víkingur always just wins, so maybe a bit less so. But we did see this, like we would see Keflavik lose 4-0 to Hauka or something. I mean, just making up a result, and then they would go and draw Valur in the next game. It was so. But I think still from the beginning of the season, it's a very long preseason. So like honestly, these big teams should be fitter and they should be more like ready. They have bigger names. They should be rolling over these teams. But we only had one sort of massacre, and that was in the Vestri game. And even then, I was quite impressed in the first half with Vestri. And I think the first halves of all these games, I think the minnows did really well. Like in the Vestri game, I was really impressed with Jeppe Gertsen, the Danish defender. I almost picked him in the stars. If we had one more star of the week, I would maybe put him in there. I think he was fantastic, like on the ball, and everything he did was just so composed and great. And with Eidur Aron, who I think he had a much better game than in the first game. So like that defense, I think will be quite solid for the rest of the season. Fylkir, really, really great performance, shutting down maybe a bit of a robotic Valur. They didn't have much imagination, especially given all the talent they have. But take nothing away from Fylkir. Fantastic performance. To be honest, they might have and should have maybe won. What do you think?
I mean, I think I would say that. I think I agree with you. Yeah. I
mean, they missed the penalty as well, and there's been a lot of talk about Fredrik Skram, being man of the match in that game, and I agree, he was great. He made some great saves, but I think, and we'll touch on him a bit later, Oliver Kristoffer, the Fylkir goalkeeper, was great. If you watch the highlights from this game, I think it's just two things. It's the penalty, and then it's a shot from Gylfi that should have 99% of the time that goes in the far corner, and he somehow managed to save it. But it was I had a bunch of other saves, and but that's still a defense held really strong and really really impressed. And do you maybe want to talk about Fram Víkingur?
Yeah. So when I was watching this game, and I had it on here at work, so I was kind of going back and forth, so I didn't have my full undivided attention. But I can tell you, at least, and as you had already mentioned in the first half, Fram were looking very good, actually. I actually thought they were the better team in the first half. I thought they played very well. They didn't seem to have any fear, so they were playing without fear against, one of, if not the best team in the league. Yeah, they looked very impressive. They created multiple opportunities in front of goal, and maybe most of our listeners know as well. They had a goal ruled out because of a handball, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what the referee thought happened. Not sure how, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you had shared that to the Twitter account, and so I was watching that a little bit today, and I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Like, I can kind of see it.
So I can see how he thought it would have happened. Like, I can see, like, if you see it just once, like his hand moves back a little bit. Like as he sort of gets the ball, his hand sort of jerks back a little bit. So like, but then obviously if you watch it a bunch of times, you see it clearly doesn't hit his hand. I think maybe what's most telling is that none of the Víkingur players are appealing for it.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the video again, and we posted it on our Twitter, none of the Víkingur players are like appealing for it or saying anything. They just they're annoyed that they conceded a very sloppy goal at the far post.
Yeah.
From a corner.
Yeah.
And like maybe he should have. I'm not saying you should like listen to the players. Like they'll appeal for and ask for anything, but like maybe in a situation like that where like he can't have seen it completely. Like there's a lot of players, there's a lot of things. Like maybe take 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Ask, whistle maybe, and then ask your assistants, did you see anything?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not quite sure. Nobody's saying anything. Maybe we should give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know. I'm not a referee at all, but yeah, I think it was. But yeah, we have final results from our Twitter poll, and 78% say that Fram were robbed. So, but 20%, 22% say it was a handball. So I'm not. Maybe we have a few Víkingur fans there in the.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure we do. It's interesting because, the handball rule, right? This is almost it in like opposite design. Is that, am I making sense here? Like, so if it does in fact hit his hand, like his arm's not in an unnatural position. So like, why would you? I'm
gonna sound like a 70-year-old English commentator here, but I have no idea what it's a handball anymore.
Yeah, I know this is true. It is very difficult. Yeah.
It's just like sometimes you see a guy just chip a ball straight into someone's hand and it's a penalty, and then sometimes you see someone controlling kind of with their hand and it's not a handball. I have no idea.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
But I agree with you.
Yeah, it's tough. I think in the end, a bit bittersweet's not the right word. Bitter, maybe just bitter for Fram, because they probably could have come away with maybe something from this game. I thought that Fred and Thiago both played pretty well, Freddy, and so like I said, I was impressed with their performance in the first half, but I think the fact that it only ended 1-0 says a lot about where this Fram team is at right now, and I think I actually do. I think they've had a good start to the season, and if they can keep this going, then they're probably going to finish a lot higher than I had them. So,
I think, like we said in our preview, the first preview episode, it came out on Friday or Saturday, I think. If this is the worst of this league has to offer, supposedly these 3 teams, then Vestre, Haukau, Fylkir, Fram, I think we're in for a pretty good season, because none of these teams are dreadful. I think I'd be a bit worried as a Vestre fan. I haven't really seen, like I said, the defensive side seems to be quite good. They're a good goalkeeper, good defense, good setup. I thought a lot of their individual sort of play that made a few mistakes, but overall I think it was pretty good. But then going forward, there was nothing happening. They had a few. Sergin Fall was quite lively on the wing. Nacho was pretty okay, sort of getting some balls up the pitch. But yeah, I'd be a bit worried going forward. I think they need to. They have Kawa next. We'll touch on Kawa in a little bit, but I think they need to. I'm not sure they're going to win against Kawa, but I think they need to show some attacking intent. Maybe even score their first goal of the season, because I think they need to start scoring soon. Some questions might be asked, but the other teams, I think they're not going down without a fight.
Yeah, I took a quick peek at my fantasy team, and kind of looking ahead to the next round. And this is your fault, by the way, because you got me into fantasy this year. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of goals in the Kawa Vestry game this next week. That's my personal take on it, though.
But I don't know. I've been wrong. I went pretty heavy on some Valor players in my fantasy team because I wasn't sure they were gonna like completely wipe the floor with Vilkir because I thought they were impressive against Coward. But I was like, okay, there's gonna be goals. They're gonna score at least 2-3 goals, and maybe Vilkir will score some goals as well.
And then there were none.
And there was nothing. So yeah, what do I know?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think that kind of covers that group. All right, let's talk about kind of two, I don't want to say middle of the pack. That's not the right phrase, but you know what I'm going at. We're going to start with Stjarnan hosting Kaur. This was actually a very fun match, and I thought the football on display was actually very entertaining. I was very enthralled with this game. So I was a happy watcher on Friday. Did this result surprise you at all?
Maybe a little bit, I think. But it was a very similar game to the Fylke game for Kaur, on the Kaur side. It was very hectic in the beginning, in the first half. But then the second half, Kaur took complete control. I think they were fantastic. I think I think they did something similar to Fylke, but it was to a much bigger extent. I think this was, almost the perfect second half. You can see it in the passing stats as well. Like in the first half, they had... Yeah, like in the opposition half, in the first half, they had 55 passes. In the second half, they had 97, almost double. They had less passes in their own half, but they had more passes overall. So that you could see that the passing they were doing was more in the Stjarnan half. It was much more, they were pinging long balls from Axel Oskar, and Alex was doing a really good job in the midfield. I think it was just fantastic. And Stjarnan, I'm a little bit surprised because... they lost some players, but they brought in some of their old kids, still very young, but kids that have gone abroad and now are back on loan. So they should be. I'm a little bit surprised as that they aren't maybe better than this, and maybe also they're not this sort of buzzy, annoying little flies that they were last year, like with getting in everyone's faces and just pinging balls around and just scoring from everywhere. That they seemed a bit slower, maybe a bit more pensive.
Yeah,
doing a lot of long balls to Emil. That some of them almost worked. Some one of them did. Yeah, and then there was there's some discussion of whether they're fit. There was a player that was an ex-player that was sort of saying that maybe some of their preseason hasn't been good. We played 180 minutes of football. We don't know anything about this yet, but I'm a little bit not worried. I'm just a little bit surprised at the way Stjarnan are playing. Maybe.
Yeah, I would second that. The only thing that is kind of that I guess I'm not too worried yet is because they kind of started last season like this too, and then they kind of found themselves and then kicked on, right? And so when you've got your two best players that have left since last season, and you have some new faces that you're trying to bring in, and Robert Frosty, he played last season, but he got not a ton of minutes, and then you've got Helgi Frodi, who it looks very promising, and there's a lot of hype around him, and I think it's going to take some time, right? Like there's an adaptation rate. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm cautiously optimistic still about Stjarnan, and I'm hoping that they can find their form before they get into Europe.
Yeah, there's still time. That's the good. I guess the good thing about the Icelandic league is that it's well underway when we get into Europe. But yeah, and it's more like they can catch up, but they had to play really well and really catch up quite a lot last season to get to where they were. And I think maybe as a Stjarnan fan, again, I'm not worried for them. They'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's maybe more, but you're right. They've had to adapt new players in. They've lost really good players, so it's they've let's give them a little bit more time. But I think I'm more surprised rather than worried. I think.
Yeah. Kaur, on the other hand, you kind of already talked about them, so maybe I'll just briefly go over this. But Benini, I'm glad he's back. I unfortunately took him out of my fantasy team this last week, which sucks. But I've got him back in for this next week already. So I think he has some goals in him this week. we'll see. But yeah, I was again, yeah, like you said, I was very, very impressed. They look good.
And maybe just quickly mention that we've signed a forward. We signed Eyþór Völler from Breiðablik. He's been linked away because of Breiðablik's wealth, I guess you can put it, in attack. And with Aron Sig is out for at least a month, if not more, and then Krummi Hrafn is out for the rest of the season. So KR, I think maybe needed a bit of strengthening in the forward area. So so signs a 3-year deal. Excited to see what he can do. I think he was lively at Haukar without maybe producing that many goals last season when he was on loan there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it was also a strange Haukar side that maybe didn't have that much going for them up top always, apart from when they played Breiðablik. So yeah, we'll see what he can do in Vesturbæ.
Yeah, agreed. One other thing that before we move off KR in that game that just popped into my head as I'm trying to recollect everything that I watched this weekend, the ball from Atli Sig up to create that first goal for KR was, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah, it was.
You could hardly place it any better than that. Like, he put it right in the position where, like, the goalkeeper for Stjarnan, like, he had no idea whether he should go for it or not, and it caused so much confusion. And yeah, Egger Jarl was there to latch onto it. Like, it was just like chef's kiss. It was awesome. So I just wanted to make sure we got that in there.
It was really good, and then maybe we can tie it to moving into the FO game. Like, it was a weird, maybe goalkeeping performance for the Stjarnan keeper there. I think like he spilled that. I mean, it was a really nice ball, but he sort of touched it and then brought it outside the penalty area, and then he fell over Floki, and
yeah,
and there was like I think right before Stjarnan scored, Örvar scored for Stjarnan, he also kind of half spilled something, and there was a lot of like, it wasn't very confident for him, like for a player that was very key to Stjarnan's form last year. I think that was not a great goalkeeping performance, but there were more not great goalkeeping performances this week, right?
Yes. Oh, poor Sindri. Are we doing this again? Like, we're repeating this again, aren't we? Like, I'm having bad memories of last season. Yeah, just a really easy ball off a free kick that should have been just completely grabbed and tucked in, and it was spilled from Sindri, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm not there, and I'm not him, and I'm not a professional goalkeeper, so I don't want to say anything, and I don't want to talk bad about anybody. But man, it was kind of a bummer. Like, I was not thrilled at that moment in time, but it's okay because Kjartan Kari rescued us a few minutes later, so it ended up working out. But yeah, obviously we're talking about.
That was not a good.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, that was not a good goalkeeping performance either in that winning goal. Like, I don't know what Ayala was doing there, or what his positioning was. I mean, it was a good shot, but he was... Yeah.
I wonder if he was maybe blocked a little bit too. I'd have to go back and look again. But it was a well-placed shot, like right in that bottom left corner. And it would have been tough, I think, for a lot of goalkeepers to get to it. But if his positioning had been a little bit better, I think you're right. Like, maybe he could have gotten a hand to it and potted away. So we won't spend too much time on this game, but I am happy with our performance. Like, I thought we played pretty well. That's a tough place for us to go. Like, last year, I don't think we won there at all, and we played there twice, maybe 3 times. Anyways, and yeah, we struggled there, and so for us to go and grab a win like that, I think was impressive and helped us get off the ground. For Kawa, though, I think it's got to be a little worrying, right? Like, they are only on 1 point at this point in time, and they don't quite look like the team that we saw last season. Obviously, it's still early in the season, so there's a little bit of a caveat to that. But from 2 matches, they only have 1 point, and yeah, it's they look pretty toothless, if I'm being honest. Like, that's the biggest take for me. It's like, I don't know where their goals are going to come from. Like, nobody looks like scoring.
No, I think it's I mean, it's different from last season, but it's also not that different because, I mean, they did struggle last season as well. They didn't have the greatest season. I mean, they had a really good cup season and a really good Europe season, but the league season was pretty dreadful. I think there is a little bit of pressure now on the manager. Obviously, it's very early. He he's a young manager with a growing squad, but he's had them now for almost a year or a year, more than a year now, I guess.
I think
And it's
so, yeah.
like I said, the Cup was great, Europe was great, the league. He's not won that many games in the league, and I think
Not so
it's
much.
how long can you really wait for a team like this that they want to
Big dreams.
Yeah, big dreams, but they also have a big striker in Villarreal who had a pretty terrible miss there towards the end of the game. And how long can they honestly wait for this team to sort of take off? They have Vestre, I think, like we mentioned, next. If somehow Vestre wins that game or gets a point, I don't think he'll be fired after that, but I think there'll be questions.
Yeah, I would agree.
Serious questions asked.
Okay. Finally, last match of the round. Haukau hosting IA. This was our first hat trick of the season from Victor Jansson. It kind of solidifies how a lot of us are feeling about Haukau. And also, well, I think it says more about Haukau than it does IA, if I'm being honest, in my opinion.
I think it does a bit. I had it sort of in the background because it's just the first half was so boring. I was watching the first half and it was not an entertaining game. It was very sort of ping pong balls, and I was a bit surprised that he didn't take more control of the game. And then Thosetnaron gets that red card, maybe a little bit. I don't know, not the biggest red card. It wasn't the roughest challenge in the world, but he lost his man. Let the ball bounce a bit awkwardly, lost his man, and then he was kind of through on goal, but not really. I don't know. I think it could have easily just been a yellow, like a very orangey yellow. But I get it. And then after that, it just completely collapsed. And then, Victor, Smáradona and Victor took care of the rest.
Smáradona. Yeah. I think it's good for IA that they're on the board now in terms of points. And, right, like those are the games that at the end of the day could be like quote-unquote relegation 6-pointers, right? And so for them to get 3 points there, I think is really good.
I think it's just one of those games that, like you said, needed to win. Haukau should have been looking to get at least a point or something off of. They didn't. I think Kawa will definitely be looking at this result and thinking, how in the world did we not get more out of that game in that first round? Haukau are in trouble, that's for sure. They need to bounce back. They need to bounce back quickly. They need to get some points, more points on the board. They need to get some goals, a bit like Vestre, or they might be stuck there for a few weeks.
Victor Jansson, obviously, as we've already mentioned multiple times, with the hat trick. So we're going to delve into our 3 stars of the week, and he's one for obvious reasons. But yeah, fantastic. Looked a peach. So he's in there. Any other words you want to say on him?
I think this is it'll be a very interesting season. There's been a lot of talk that he's a player that's too good for the relegated in the first division, but not quite good enough for Basseltiltin. I think before this game, he had scored 19 goals in 98 games in the top division, while in the second highest division, he'd scored 79 in 106. So, like, he's definitely, so far in his career, he's been a first division scorer rather than a top division. But there's been injuries. He's been very unlucky with those. So I think this season, this is where he wants to prove the world wrong, and I think he's off to a pretty good start. Yeah,
it's great. Our second star of the week, Olafur Kristoffer. Tell us about him, Tryggvi.
Yeah, we already mentioned him a little bit. A lot of people have been giving the credits to Fede Skram in that Virkir game, and rightly so. He did well. The penalty save was good. It wasn't a great penalty, but it was a good save. And he had a few other saves, but I think all of it was just magnificent. There was even one where I think it was flagged for an offside or a foul or something, but it was still just like it takes nothing away from the save. It epitomizes his performance in this game. It was just like a very commanding, came out of his goal, completely closed down the opportunity and made a great save. And that was him in this game. I think anytime Valur got any sniff of the goal, he was there to close it down. I think he was criticized a bit, slightly by us maybe after the first round, but he really stepped up, and I think he was fantastic. Really impressed with him.
And finally, our third star of the week is going to go to Axel Oskar, who got the second goal in Kauer's win. And there were some funny things going around in the internet after that, things linking him with big dogs and, pit bulls and things like that. So, because is that I'm unaware, so you'll have to fill me in. Is that kind of the vibe that he had coming in already?
He's a big boy, so he gives off that sort of energy already. But then he had a post match interview where he was just, giving it all like that. That's where people are getting this, the coward arrogance, that it's nice to have it back, and he just epitomized that. It was just like, we were really damn good out there, and we just like how far can you take it? We'll see. Just like with the biggest grin on his face, and just ready for a fight and ready to take everyone on. And he saw that in this game. It's just he was fantastic. I think Emil got behind him for that goal, but otherwise nothing else got past him. But it was also, and he scored that goal, but it was also just the calm he brought to that team. Alex, we mentioned on the midfield, did really well, but Axel in defense was just pinging the ball across the pitch. He was also doing short passes to Alex. He was almost controlling the tempo of the game along with Alex, and he was fantastic. And if hopefully for me and Ragnar and the rest of the Coward family, he can continue this form.
Very good. I do want to give an honorable mention to Vuk Oscar from FH. We try to make sure that we're putting players from all the teams in this, not just because we're Coward and FH fans, but I did actually think he had a really good game. He converted the penalty, but playing out wide, he was dangerous all game. So he did well to slide the ball down the channel to help set up Sigurður Bjartur for the second goal for FH this weekend. He was good. So I was very happy with that. So honorable mention to him as well. All right. I think that wraps it up for this episode. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss?
Maybe just a quick preview for the weekend. We have, huge games. I think it kicks off with Stjarnan Valur on Friday. That's a game everyone should watch. It's going to be Stjarnan need to step up. Valur need to bounce back from that game against Víkingur. I'm going to say there's going to be goals, and hopefully it doesn't end with a 0-0.
I think there's going to be goals in that one.
Yeah, exactly. I think so as well. And then we have Runar returning. It was supposed to be Runar's return to Coward, to Mr. Velder, but we didn't get a touch on it. But the grass situation for the three teams, for FH, Coward, and EA, the three teams playing on grass. The grass, it's not a great time to be playing on grass at the moment in Iceland. So all those games got moved either inside or they all got moved basically to AstroTurf. A letdown that Runar won't be coming to his old home pitch, but it'll be an exciting game anyway. And then we finished the weekend on Sunday with Víkingur Breiðablik, the game, the main game last season. I think the game that caused all of Icelandic social media just to go crazy, and like the fans and the managers and everything. We don't have Oscar in the hot seat, but Dore was just as heated. So we'll see what the atmosphere is like for that one.
Yes, that is for those of you who may be new and listening. That is our version of the Classico. Well, you might say. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. At least over the last few years.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like don't miss TV right there. So that's going to be a big game, and yeah, both those teams will be coming in undefeated. Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and as always, you can find us on socials at Best English. And that's on Instagram and Twitter. And Trygve, thanks for joining me again.
Thanks, Joe. It was a pleasure.
And this is us. We're signing off. We'll talk to you next time.